Hi, this is Matt here with Bikepacking Light, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Woho Saddle Bag Stabilizer. So this is going to be more of a long-term review. I've put in over 1,000 miles on this seat bag stabilizer, or saddle bag stabilizer, and I just wanted to talk about some of my likes and dislikes about it. So let's get right into it. First of all, I think one of the major weak points of this device is the mounting system. So the way that this works is it crushes your saddle rails, and that's what attaches this to the back of your bike, and it really keeps your saddle bag in line. I'm going to link in the description below to a video that Woho themselves have put out showing before and after. So I'm not going to do an official before stabilization, after stabilization, because I will tell you that this does work. It does deliver as promised if you do suffer from saddlebag sway. And on a much shorter tour that I did last year, I noticed that to be a problem with this Ortolib seat bag, because it does protrude rather far and it is cantilevered off of your saddle rails. So when you're really grinding, this thing tends to sway quite a bit. So the Woho definitely delivered on stabilizing. Let's talk first about the cages. I ended up fitting this out with some titanium king cages, so that made the overall price of this very expensive. But it does keep the cages themselves really lightweight. I probably could have gone with plastic, but that actually brings me to one of the first things I didn't know when I bought this and what I found out after I started using this out on the road. This is actually the farthest thing protruding on your bike if you're looking from the horizontal. So horizontally, this is going to be one of the furthest things protruding, at least from my bike, because I mean, you're trying to stay as aero as possible this direction. So I do have a very lightweight carbon bike, so it was nice to have something to rest the bike up against and not have to rest it against the frame. And since I did get titanium, it is actually starting to show some wear here. That also helps if your bike is lightly balanced against something and falls over. This is going to take the brunt of the force. So if you are going with plastic cages on this and you're going on tour, just be aware that if your bike falls over, the plastic's probably going to break, because the full weight of all your packs and everything is going to come right down directly onto your cages. So I actually like that. I thought that was a positive feature. It's likely not going to hit my drivetrain or my frame. The bag wear. So this did create some abrasion points on my bag over all that usage. Not anything too bad, but it is starting to wear these straps quite a bit. Most of that's paint that it wore off of here, this point right here. But yeah, for the most part though, that's not that bad of a trade-off for the stabilization that this provides. Seat rails in general are not the best thing to statically clamp something to, especially if you're clamping to both of them and not clamping to both of the rails independently. Because what you might know is as you're riding, your seat rails tend to flex, and you have flexion as you shift your weight around the bike. And what I found is over time, that really just backs out the screws that hold this in place. And I actually lost one of the screws when I was on tour. It got that bad, and because I just wasn't thinking about it and wasn't checking on it enough, and I had to stop at a bike shop. Luckily they did have a bolt that they just gave me. I mean, how much is a bolt really worth? But just know that, and maybe carry a few extra bolts with you when you go, if you're thinking about this thing. If you can see, it really is starting to ride my seat rails quite hard there. That's from the rails themselves. That also is getting some abrasion marks on it. So I don't know. I just don't think that this is the best solution for clamping. I'd like to see maybe like a diamond shape groove that your rails can fit into to really lock down and clamp down on them, or perhaps design it similar to the way that your actual rails clamp onto the seat post. And if you've looked at an actual seat post, this is not how they clamp. It has a round or a dome-shaped thing there. I understand that Woho is trying to make this fit on a wide spectrum of saddle rails. So I think they're doing the best they can in making this a fairly universal piece of kit. But they also already have the two different versions, the Brooks version and the standard. It looks like the standard and SMP saddles. Yeah, I think that could definitely be done better. And I noticed that if you are riding without a bag, there's absolutely nothing holding this in place. And I actually made the mistake of leaving this attached to my bike when I took a train back up from Southern California back home. That I didn't take this off, and this was just there. And as the baggage handlers got this back to me, it picked up quite a bad bend. I don't know if you can even really see it, but this is supposed to be bent a little bit more that way. And then actually in here, it picked up a pretty gnarly crack. So gnarly, in fact, that I really don't think the metal's quite stressed, and I don't think this would last much longer. So for me, this only lasted one tour. Granted, it was the West Coast tour. And I don't think that this would last much longer than that. Put it onto your saddle. There's not enough clearance if you have a standard size bottle, or anything over this size. It's definitely going to poke into your butt. This is a specialized anything keg, I think, or keg of some sort. But anyway, I'll post some links to these in my description, and just this is actually the solution that I ended up coming up with, because all I needed was a little bit more tool storage space. So I actually just stored my tools and a few other little trinkets that could fit in there in here, and this was enough clearance to not poke my butt at all. So if you're not looking for extra water, that's a good solution. I really do like the concept of this. Again, I really just think that we need to work out the bugs. Namely, this starts to come unscrewed over time. And also, these are a bit too high. Maybe if we lengthened this so that we could store full-size water bottles, this would actually work for hydration. But for my case, I wasn't able to use it for hydration. I didn't need to. There was some minor wear on my saddle itself. I had this mounted too high up, and you can see that, or maybe you can, but a little bit of the paint is starting to get worn away on this piece. Not too big of a deal, but it did start to chip into my saddle a little bit, and it was starting to create some just gnarly squeaking and creaking noises as these rubbed on my saddle rails, and this was actually rubbing on the plastic part of my seat as it flexed downward. This just adds extra complexity because your saddle rails have to now fit this and all this stuff in what's already pretty cramped. So it leads to a very complicated strapping experience, especially if you have a bag like this, where you need to strap it onto the bike every day. If you want to remove it, at least you have to reattach every day. And I noticed that definitely some companions of mine that didn't, that just had normal bags, not these saddle bags, it took a lot less time to attach, and it's just so that's just a minor pain point, but that might just be this bag. I would assume the other ones with an actual compression strap mounting system, they probably don't have that issue. So I think overall, yeah, a little bit more research and development needs to be made on this, but I really do like the stabilization that it provides though. So I think my general conclusions on this is that it's great if you're not planning on carrying any weight on it. It could be argued that perhaps some of the issues that I experienced were also because as you ride and you have maybe a significant amount of weight, but no more than a water bottle would hold, or no more weight than a water bottle will be, this action of bouncing also starts to loosen the bolts that clamp this to your seat rails. Thanks for watching, and I really hope that this educated your purchasing decisions, and if you have anything else that you'd like me to let you know about this particular piece of gear, just leave a comment down below, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll leave a link in my description, and you know, go ahead and check out some of the other videos I have on my channel. Thanks again, and see you out on the road.